All right, welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about Intro to Integrated Pest Management, also known as IPM. We're going to show you different tactics and techniques and how to manage your farm or operation from pests and disease. So what is Integrated Pest Management? Every greenhouse, same this greenhouse over here, plant or system will be affected at one point in time from pest or some type of biological disease or anything like that. With integrated pest management, it is a holistic approach to managing these diseases, insects, and mites in the greenhouse or grow room, and basically giving you the best tools and control tactics in order to disrupt the pest or the disease and have a very nice, clean operation and be able to harvest nice fruit. If you are a commercial grower or have your own greenhouse, even a personal greenhouse or homestead, you should have an IPM program that's put in place in your growing and farm operation. So here's the IPM triangle. You can see at the bottom, we start with prevention, cultural, sanitation, physical, biological, and using chemicals and pesticides are the last thing we want to use inside of our greenhouse. We try to do all these things prior to that. We're going to talk through these steps here. So here are the most common insects you guys can find inside of a hydroponic setting or greenhouse: spider mites, whiteflies, thrips, scale, fungus gnats, and aphids. You're going to fight these at one point as a farmer or a grower. So with cultural practices and prevention and sanitation, we want to look at cultural practice. Is the system designed well? You know, is the greenhouse overheating, causing stress? You know, the plants, they're going to get more diseases, more pests. Are there aspects of the design that could be putting the crop under unnecessary stress, such as mixing the tank? Is it too small? Is there poor oxygenation in the tank or the nutrient solution? Are we not giving the plant enough food and nutrients that it needs in order for it to be healthy, just like us? Is the environment well designed? Is there sufficient airflow in the greenhouse, ventilation, humidification, or shading if necessary? All of these aspects can be put the crop under unnecessary stress and lead to disease. Also, we look at seed. Have you chose good quality genetics? When I used to grow microgreens, I was growing stuff for restaurants, buying peas, and got a lot of peas the second time. They weren't germinating, they were cracked. The genetics weren't good. And I was like, what's going on here? So if you do get a good lot number, you want to make sure you talk to the person that's selling the seed. Johnny Seeds is a really popular company. They help a lot of growers commercially around the world and United States, and sell a lot of different varieties that have been bred for disease and pest resistant. But having genetics is very crucial. It doesn't matter if everything's perfect, every variable is perfect. If you do not have good seeds and good clones and good genetics, a lot of this stuff you're gonna run into problems. We also want to look at, are there a lot of weeds outside of the greenhouse? A lot of weeds will bring in pests and things. You know, sometimes people plant beneficial plants around the greenhouse or in the garden to bring in ones that would eat the pests that we have in our greenhouse. But we want to make sure we keep, just like a house too. I did a landscaping job the other day. They were having mice problems in their house. They haven't cut down the vegetation around their home for a long time. You're going to lead to pests and disease, not just in greenhouses, but in our homes as well. Or, you get fleas too if you don't cut your grass. It becomes a hazard and can start hosting other pests and disease. So with prevention and cultural practices, we'll also look at, has the crop been properly maintained? Is there excessive growth? If you're growing tomatoes and you haven't pruned all the leaves, you're not really getting good airflow in your garden. You're going to lead to pests and disease. Is there poor drainage? Is there water sitting in the grow room or in the greenhouse? That's going to lead to mosquitoes, larvae, things like growing like that. Is the water, if you are collecting rainwater or using water in your system, you want to make sure it's not just sitting there and just collecting mold. With hydroponic systems, are we cleaning it? And are we sanitizing our systems in between? Maybe we make sure, we'll talk about cleaning your shears and stuff like that, and all your tools in between cutting and pruning stuff too. Also, we don't want to leave any plant material on the ground. Just like if you're going into surgery, the doctor's not going to cut this out and just throw it on the ground. Keeping it clean, keep your grow room clean. That's a vector for pests and disease on the ground. And then this is the most important one at the end: inspecting all plant materials coming in. I bought in plants from Drug Mart, didn't notice had some aphids on it, brought it into our grow room, was growing violas. All of a sudden, all the violas are infected with aphids. So if someone's giving you a house plant or something, make sure you isolate it and spray it. We're going to talk about different biological controls and things you could use to spray stuff, but you shouldn't be just taking stuff in from somebody and just putting it into your grow room, because you could be bringing in pests and disease as well. Some methods here: sanitation mats. You can see at the bottom left, a lot of greenhouses and grow rooms will actually have pads that you can step into to sanitize your feet to prevent any type of pest or disease coming in. There's also blowers to stop when the greenhouse door opens up. It actually blows pests from entering the greenhouse. The Cleveland Botanical Gardens has that the opposite way, so that the Costa Rican butterflies and other things can't fly out and in as well. And then some grow operations also will have showers before entering the grow room. More strict areas that are growing medicinal plants and things like that, they're required to take a shower and change into scrubs just like a nurse to prevent disease and pests from coming in. So disinfecting our pruning shears in between cutting plants is also good. If you're going to be cutting your tomatoes outside, or your trees, your grapevines, anything like that, in between plants, we want to make sure we're disinfecting our pruners, because you could literally be the vector, cutting this plant, don't know it's infected, and spreading the disease to all the other plants, or to another job site too. If you're an arborist pruning trees and you go to someone else's property, you just brought the disease to their property without knowing, and make sure we're cleaning our stuff and our equipment. This is a very popular product in hydroponics called Zerotol. It's hydrogen dioxide, and it also has some acetic acid in it, which is like vinegar. We can also use isopropyl alcohol, which is an easy fix in a spray bottle. It's selling at Walgreens, 70%. Bleach is okay to use, but bleach is, it does break down metal, starts to rust it and stuff. Isopropyl alcohol does not do that. The Zerotol is more of an organic, safer alternative for not only cleaning your tools, but your whole grow room, all your equipment, your lights, your systems, everything like that. So one key here is to monitor our greenhouse or our grow room, anything that we have. We should become familiar and recognize the most anticipated common pests. If we're growing a certain crop, say like bamboo, John said he's growing bamboo, we want to find out what pests are attacking bamboo. We should have those posted on our wall. If we're a bamboo farmer, we want to know which pests attack bamboo and be able to identify that. Use these sticky cards right here, the sticky little trap cards. A lot of people put those in their tents and stuff thinking it's to catch bugs. It's not. It's to identify, okay, I see this population, this insect is growing. I need to get this under control. It kind of gives us a recognition or ID to tell like how much of the pest is there, and are there new pests in the greenhouse that we haven't seen before. It's very handy to have one of these little tiny microscopes too. You can have that on hand when you're looking at your plants. Sometimes you can't see certain pests and things. You can identify it. They're pretty inexpensive. They have ones that hook up into your phone too, on your camera, and you can take pictures of that too. Basically like a phone microscope. But a lot of growers and stuff out in their field and their operations will have these small ones just on hand. Another thing is it's pretty cool. Dogs are actually used in outdoor farms as well. They use dogs to sniff out a lot of different pathogenic diseases, potato diseases, bacterial ring rot, which is 99% accurate with dogs. Also citrus greening for limes and lemons and oranges. They use that as well. And also for vineyards. They refer to them as sniffer dogs. But they use it in the Napa Valley and Sonoma counties to detect the female mealybug pheromone that it's giving off when it's trying to attract males. The dogs can actually sniff that out and see where they're at. But this is not the only crops that they use dogs for. They use them for a lot of different operations and different diseases and pests to detect. Way better than a computer, way better than a human. Dog senses, that's the first thing they can, when they're born, is their sense of smell. So pretty useful to use as well. You don't want to bring your dog though into your greenhouse or into a controlled environment, because if it's outside rubbing up on different plants, your dog can actually be a vector to bring pests and disease into your grow room or greenhouse. Outdoors, totally fine. So now we're going to talk about physical. If we do have a problem or disease or pest, we can physically remove that plant and get rid of it. When I used to work at Green City Growers, we'd have aphid problems. I'd walk through and scouting all the greenhouses, all the plants, taking the plants and literally throwing them away, destroying them. There's thousands of aphids out there. Kept doing that, along with a lot of these other techniques we're going to talk about. We got rid of the whole aphid problem and diminished it. Basically, just every week going through, getting rid of that, and then coming back and spot spraying. We'll talk about chemical treatment as well. or isolating it. You could take the plant and remove it into a different spot away from everything, but if it's diseased to a certain point and too much pest, it's better to destroy it than risk getting everyone else sick. We're going to talk about apple cedar rust. This is a disease that's actually caused from a secondary vector. A lot of farmers will plant eastern red cedar in their fields to prevent wind. What happens is the disease called apple cedar rust will start to grow onto the eastern red cedar, and then it'll actually evolve and reinfect mostly crab apples and apples. But by just getting rid of this plant, it actually evolves and becomes stronger. So sometimes secondary hosts allow that virus or disease to get stronger and to infect certain plants and stuff like that. Talk about black currants. You guys ever question like why don't we grow black currants like in Ohio or in America? It's from Europe. It's a European. A lot of people in Europe like to use it, but basically, it's a vector for disease that would affect a lot of our red pine, white pine in our lumber industry. If you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, you see there's a lot of pine everywhere. Up in Michigan, a lot of pine forest, and black currant is a secondary vector to actually pine needle rust. So it grows on the plant, infects that, and then infects the white pine. It would destroy millions of dollars of in the wood industry here in Ohio and in America. So there's certain states that allow you to grow certain varieties that are certain cultivars that are resistant to the disease that affects it. But we want to make sure that we're under legal status when we're doing it. But yeah, right here, what does Ohio say? The European black currant, Ribes nigrum, or any variety of this species is hereby declared to be a public nuisance, and it shall be unlawful for any person to possess, transport, plant, propagate, sell, or offer sell plant roots, scions, seedings, or cuttings of this plant in the state. This is from the Ohio State's website. I was looking up today, and there's no fungicides labeled on currants or gooseberries to control white pine blister rust. Also, we want to prevent monoculturing. So I don't know if you guys remember Dutch elm disease. We would line all our streets with one species of tree, elm. What happened is Dutch elm disease came in and literally just destroyed all of our towns from this tree. So the rule is 10, 20, or 30%. 10, 20, 30 rule, never more than 10% of one species. You can see this is all elm trees just lined up. Never more than 20% of one genus, and then 30% of any family. So if you look at black locust, there's probably some out there growing, but Robinia pseudocacia, the genus is Robinia pseudocacia, and it's in the pea family Fabaceae. So we only want 10%, 20%. Sorry, this is species 10%, 20, and then 30. So we want to have a different type of trees going down here. If you walk into a forest, you don't see just red oak throughout the whole forest. There's a diversity. So if a disease or pest does come in, it doesn't just wipe everything out. So we want to prevent monoculturing and planting clones of the same thing everywhere, because it's not good to monoculture. You get a lot more pests and disease, less variabilities. Like I said, when you walk into a forest, this is a study done in Lake County. You see a diversity, unless it's invasive, like Japanese honeysuckle, garlic mustard, and things like that. They're invasive species, but you see on the right here, there's a diversity. Usually invasive species will come in and take over and kind of cause a lot of problems. But now we're going to talk about mechanical. So another thing you could do if you do have pests or disease, you can actually knock the pest off the plant. Some people have vacuumed them off. We can use barriers, traps, cultivation, solarization. Right here, using hot water to sterilize our media. These compressed cocoa bricks, when you buy them, from compression itself, it actually sterilizes the media. And then we can use netting too. So if you're growing stuff outside and you know there's going to be, say you're growing arugula and you're getting the beetles that usually come to eat them, this helps a lot to prevent the beetle from eating like arugula or any other crops that you're using outdoors. But netting's really good to use, even for your ventilation coming into your greenhouse too. So now we're going to talk about biological. So biological is actually, we're going to fight nature with nature. You can actually use other pests, sorry, not pests, but other insects to help fight and combat your pests. We can fight nature with nature. Releasing beneficial insects every 2 weeks as a preventative, or spot spraying in areas with living organisms. You can use nematodes. There's predatory mites that actually eat the other spider mites. You can buy these and hang them on your plants. There's a bunch of living mites inside here that will lease out and start causing war and to eat all the bad ones. Lace wings, and a lot of different companies out there to buy from. Copert's probably one of the biggest commercial ones out there. They also sell beehives for greenhouses to pollinate tomatoes. This one here, you can actually buy praying mantis eggs from them. You can buy ladybugs from them. But I would check out these main companies up here. BioBest is pretty good, not only for pests and for biologicals, but they sell other equipment too, like the strips and things like that. We can also do what's known as banker plants. So, some people like vanilla, some people like chocolate. The pest may prefer this plant over the one that you're currently growing. So you put that plant in your greenhouse to have the pest attack that plant, and you can actually destroy it and get rid of it. It's a way to help it from attacking the crop that's most desirable to you that you're growing for your greenhouse. For example, aphids prefer oats and wheat. They prefer castor bean, whiteflies, mullein, and thrips, peppers. So if you have thrips inside your greenhouse and put some peppers in there, they're going to go towards the peppers. You could take those and destroy them or spray them with some type of pesticide or something because you're not going to be using it. You're just using it to get them to go to that area to get rid of them and destroy them. Banker plants. So some other biological examples too. When I worked at Green City Growers growing lettuce, we used Bovaria bassiana, which is a fungus that you actually can spray on the pest. And it's an endopathogenic fungus that would eat the pest from the outside in. And it's a biological, not harmful to humans, just aphids. There's also the parasitic wasp, very similar to Alien, the movie. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but the parasitic wasp will go up to the aphid, inject its ovipositor into the aphid, and basically put a bunch of baby eggs inside of it, and it will hatch and kill it. So these are different biological things you could use for controlling aphids. We use ladybugs too, combined with the funguses, combined with this, and the cultural practices of destroying all the plants that are infected. We can take control of our room or our greenhouse if there is a pest or disease issue by using all these things together. Another biological example, Monsanto created a product called BT corn. They actually took Bacillus thuringiensis, which is the BT, and it hurts, I forget which insect it is now, the European corn borer, but they genetically modified it to have it inside the plant. So they've took Mother Nature, which is kind of, some people have their own theories of if it's good or not, but they pretty much put the bacteria into the plant. So when the pest comes to eat the plant, it affects it. But with time, you will become resistant to it. And we'll talk about different modes of action, how to attack a pest or disease if there is one present in our greenhouse or room. So biological continued. I don't have internet here. I haven't been able to hook up to it, but diatomaceous earth, they sell this at like Tractor Supply. They use it for dogs for like fleas, and you use it on your plants as well, but it's basically small, called diatoms. It also adds silica to the plants. It's a white powder, kind of looks like flour, but you can go up to your plant and blow it onto it. And once it renders itself if it gets wet, but basically no pests become resistant to it. And when the bugs walk through it, it's like walking through like shards of glass for them. It just cuts their exoskeleton, and it causes them to bleed from the outside and kills them. So you could use this it's food grade. Use it for dogs for a lot of different applications, but it also can be used for plants. It's a very popular organic alternative than using pesticides. All right, we're going to talk about the last one, chemical. Chemicals should be our last choice of action before integrating all other steps that we talked about. I'm just get some water. So before using any chemicals, we have to understand that the label is the law. You can and will be prosecuted if you're misusing chemicals inside your greenhouse. Even using Roundup, you can use it on your own property, but if you're commercially or going to other people's properties applying any type of herbicide or pesticide, you need to be under the law and actually have to be licensed. We'll talk about the licensing too. But the LD50 represents the dosage at which it would kill an animal. They do it with lab rats. They'll introduce it with a milligram dose, basically to where it kills 50% of the population. So you can see cyanide, 10 milligrams per pound of per kilogram of body weight. So you need, depending on how many kilograms you'd weigh times 10, that's how much it would take to. It's about 100 apple seeds to kill an adult male from cyanide. Like 150-pound male, I would say, around there. But yeah, we can look at the LD50 to kind of tell us how toxic something is versus not being. But caffeine is also used as a pesticide, say with nicotine. We're going to talk about nicotine and how it's probably one of the top 3 pesticides used in the world, if not in the United States. So when we're using these chemicals, we have to take the name, the brand name, EPA registration number. It could be all found on the label, the day that we're using it, how much we're using that day, and where we're applying it to. Some require, depending on the state, I think Ohio, if it's windy that day, if you're spraying herbicide. If it's windy, you may be spraying herbicide that's drifting into the farm next door and hurting someone else's plants or get somebody else sick. Or if it's going to rain that next day, depending on the pesticide you're using or herbicide, it could leach into the stream, down into the environment. So these are things that EPA will show up at your greenhouse or your grow room or even a landscaping company. There's different pesticide licenses you can acquire, and they will check all of your pesticides that you're using, and they'll actually look and see, oh look, you've used 10 mLs. This bottle's missing 50 mLs. Why haven't you written that down? You actually will get a fine, and it's a pretty hefty fine from the EPA. So all that stuff needs to be tracked and put into the record keeping form, and make sure you're following the label exactly to all of its instructions and things like that. Don't just start dumping stuff into a bottle and applying it. I see a lot of people doing that with like Browned Up and stuff like that, just dumping as much as they want, and it's not. You will get in trouble if not hurt yourself or somebody else. There's also an online record keeping resource too from Ohio State. So if you are applying these, if you do have your own farmer operation, instead of using it by paper, you can now use this online. And it's better to stay in the light and be legal with using certain pesticides because, like I said, they show up the next day, and if you're not have everything controlled and written down and how much you're using, you're going to get into some trouble. And I know people personally have gotten in trouble with landscaping companies applying Roundup and stuff like that. And the EPA showed up, hey, we're here to see your records. You better have everything ready to go and clear as day. Also, having your licensing opens up doors to buy certain things that the public can't buy as well. So back to that point, how are pesticides applied? We need to understand that day. How is it metabolically going into the plant? Is there wind drift that day? How volatile, what temperature is it stated to apply this pesticide? Do not apply around these temperatures because you're just wasting your money at that point. If you're not reading the instructions and what the label says to the pesticide or herbicide you're using, you're basically just wasting your time and wasting the chemicals, and you honestly could hurt somebody else or animals or the environment. So these are all important things that to understand which pesticide or herbicide you're using. Best thing to do is go through the whole label, the whole thing, read it, or talk to the manufacturer and ask questions. The more the better. So neonicotinoids, this is a very popular pesticide. It's basically a different form of imidacloprid is the most popular, but structurally very similar to nicotine. It's very effective because it's systemic. It actually will go into the plant, and they do believe that its reason why our bee population has gone down since the 90s, but it's one of the third most popular used pesticides for sales, and it does affect the bee's nervous system, leading to paralysis and death. But a lot of growers like to use it because it is effective. It gets into the plant systemically, meaning it's in the plant. So anything comes to attack it, it dies. And it is effective, but it also harms a lot of other animals as well. You know, that's why doing all these other practices that we talked about before using pesticides is the best. Pesticides should be the last thing you use as long as you have everything under control. If you're not monoculturing, keeping your grow room clean, you shouldn't have to do that. But if you know you're going to lose your crop and you need to do what you got to do, but do it by the law. The label is the law. Also PPE, so protective equipment. When you're reading your labels for your pesticides you're applying, make sure that we're using everything they tell you to use. PPE must be washed and dried after each day's use and stored away from chemicals. Change your gloves or respirators as per manufacturer's specifications. We want to make sure we have different tanks used for different products as well. For herbicides and pesticides, don't mix chemicals in the same tank because you could have a reaction and cause some type of gas to happen. So make sure we're rinsing everything out after each use. There's different chemical tools that we can use. A lot of people use spray bottles. This is a fogger. So you can add your own biologicals into it, different pesticides. This just has mint in it, rosemary oil. But it's a fogger. Go up to the plant, and you can fog your orchard with it. Very quick, easy way to quickly apply a biological or oil or any horticultural oil to your grow room or outdoor area, farm, garden, vegetable garden. I'll go through my vegetable garden, spray everything, my beans, once a week if I see something eating them, or more as a prevention. Something like this, it's mostly just biological plant oils like mint and things like that, and rosemary, which is not very harmful to humans, but a very effective tool instead of using a little spray bottle to go around a lot faster. So chemicals, when we're using our chemicals, it'll tell you what the chemical BT is effective towards. So before I was saying Lepidoptera, when we look at insects, we look at the order. So kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Best way to remember that is King Phil came over for good spaghetti. But when we're looking at plants, we're looking at the genus and the species. When we're looking at insects, we're looking at the order. So ladybugs, beetles are in the order of Coleoptera. Butterflies and moths are in Lepidoptera. True bugs, such as the stink bug, Hemiptera, and then we have so forth. Spiders are not really considered to be a true insect. They're an arachnid. Ticks are arachnid. So if this doesn't say it's effective towards arachnids, then it's not going to work if you're using it. So each pesticide will tell you, and it should clarify which order of insect is this attacking. Chemical, we make sure we're attacking the insect in the right stage of morphology. You should make sure that the insect will still be in its larval stage when you apply BT, and that's for BT. So if we apply on the wrong day, it's ineffective and you're going to hurt other plants. So we were talking about growing degree days last time. It'll kind of tell you which day the insect is about to hatch or coming out, which day it'll tell you on the pesticide which stage are we most effective on using this. Are we doing a soil drench because the insect lays its eggs? Are we doing a larval when it's on the vegetative stage of eating the leaves? Or there's different instars, they call them, between the insect stages. So we have to know which stages are the most effective. Also, using the right amount, pests will build resistance. Most synthetic and botanical insecticides will kill insects, mites, by affecting very chemical pathways. Neem oil was found in India, and it's very effective at killing a lot of different bugs, but it's actually stops them from feeding, so it starves the insect out. It also disrupts the hormone from the insect. It's also a repellent too, antifungal. So if you have fungal issues with your plants, you can use it. They use neem oil in a lot of cosmetic products as well. And then desiccation, it softens and dissolves the exoskeleton of some pests, kind of taking away that chill to get them a little bit more able to be affected and lead to death. We got to remember, ingestion of neem oil is potentially toxic and can cause sickness and stuff in younger children. So just because it's organic and just because it's plant-based does not mean it can't kill you. So we still want to make sure that we're reading the label. You can buy neem at Home Depot, but this is a very popular one to use in a lot of household plants or in your garden outside, neem oil. When you mix it into your tank, you want to make sure, you guys ever put oil into like water, you kind of see it flowing like a lava lamp. You want something to emulsify that, so you just add drop a dish soap, unscented dish soap. It'll cause the oil to dissipate and become a complete solution, dissolve the oil into the water. Because if you just put oil into water, it's just going to kind of float there. So you need something to dissolve to make it not hydrophobic. But sometimes products will have their own emulsifier in it, but sunflower lecithin and dish soap are pretty common. So back to the point, do we need a license to spray pesticides? Yes, you need a license to spray pesticides in Ohio, depending on the type and the circumstances. Private ones you can get for your own house, your own homestead, $30 a year annually. Commercial ones, and there's pesticides for business licenses too to sell. And you have to take an exam, and there's different categories. You take your main exam, and there's ones for greenhouse, one for ornamental, and there's one for vegetable crops and things like that. You have to do training, do certain points in different classes. By being in a class like this, you do qualify to get points and stuff like that towards your classes, and then every 3 years you got to recertify and retake the test. Just like the DMV, you just sign up online, and they have the whole course and stuff to get your pesticide applicator's license, and that opens up doors for you to be able to buy things that the public can't normally get, and very, like I said, it could be very dangerous stuff. So make sure we're applying and using this stuff respectively by the label. So the conclusion, basically we talked about making sure, keeping everything clean, cultural practices. Sickness is, prevention is always better than cure. So if you can prevent these things, just like us, taking care of our health, getting tons of sleep, doing clean things, and it won't lead to disease and pest if we're doing this, if we're doing the things right that we talked about. All these things here, biological. If we have to use chemicals, it's the last thing that we should be using. It's only if it's like do or die. Like, wow, there's no way I can do this. I'm going to lose all my crops and I have to spray. But try to do all these things prior to it, and you usually won't have to run into chemicals. And you'll have a lot healthier crops too. Today's trend is USD organic. Everybody likes stuff that's not sprayed with a bunch of different chemicals and things like that. And by doing these physical, mechanical, and biological practices and designing our grow room or our garden to be self-sustaining and clean and not monocultured, and we're not going to have to go into these harsh chemicals. That's pretty much all for today for the presentation. Does anybody have any questions about any of the products or anything that we talked about? If you do, you can email at greatlakesprouts@gmail.com or Rhonda